Emily, thank you so much. Thank you for the intro. Thank you everyone for turning up. I appreciate that this is the final presentation of the day, so thank you for hanging around for it. I'm just going to kick off with this, an intro slide. I don't normally do Who Am I intro slides, mainly because I have this unfortunate habit of turning up to the event in the same outfit that's in the profile picture, and people think I only have one change of clothes. Which I've not done this time, you'll notice, so that's what we call character growth. But also, I just never really know what to put on these kind of slides. But today I felt like it was actually quite important that I did give you a little bit of background on who I am, because at the end of the day, you're trusting me to make predictions about SEO, and I am in no way qualified. I don't have any kind of psychic ability. I have cats, so I definitely don't have any crystal balls lying around the house. I'm just a woman who is in SEO. I've been in SEO for, goodness me, over 15 years now. I've worked agency side, I've worked freelance for a bit, and I've been in brand side for a few years now, currently working in Getty Images. I've worked across all kinds of industries, small, tiny little startup companies all the way through to multinational enterprise sites. As an SEO, I've been part of teams, I've led teams, I've created teams, I've left teams. And I have had experience across pretty much all of the different verticals that you can think of. Charity sector, technology, e-commerce, professional services, many, many lawyers. I've worked across a lot of different aspects of SEO. Actually, my whole life is pretty much focused around SEO. I have friends who are SEOs. My husband is an SEO. Even my cats are getting quite good at keyword research now. So I guess, although I don't necessarily have any qualifications in telling the future, I have had a lot of experience of living through SEO, the highs, the lows, the algo updates, the fear mongering, the panic when you see that your traffic has fallen off the cliff and you don't know why, the worry over hearing that we're all going to lose our jobs because of AI. I have seen it all in the past. I have navigated it all. And if I'm quite honest with you, there is nothing new under the sun. So when I'm looking at what I'm predicting for next year, I'm basing it all on what's happened in the past. And that's all we can really do, because unless Google suddenly releases a document detailing all of the ways that they're going to change the algorithms in 2025, or we do somehow manage to find a shatterproof glass ball that I can gaze into, I don't think we can do any better than looking to the past to understand what the future might hold. Now, given that I'm basically going to be looking at the past and trying to figure out what's happening in the future, why exactly are we bothering with these predictions in the first place? Because let's face it, I am not going to be the only SEO that you come across who's making bold assertions about what the future is going to hold. I am not going to be the only person probably that you hear this month talking about it. There will be other presentations, there will be other articles, but what I think is really important is that this set of predictions that I'm going to give you now are really, really rooted in boring things. I'm not going to be giving you off-the-wall predictions that, let's face it, if they don't come true, you're probably not going to remember when it comes to January 1st anyway. But even if they do come true, the best that will happen is that I can point back and say, I made that prediction a year ago, but really they're so off the wall that you can't base any of your decisions on them, because they're so wild that if they don't come true, you could have really messed up your SEO strategy for the year. And if they do come true, well then, let's hope you're ready. So my reason for doing these predictions is because I think it is a continuation of what has gone before. 2025 will be a lot of the same, but with some differences. And I think it's really important that we start considering those now, because every one of the predictions that I'm making today are ones that I think that you can critically judge. I want you to judge what I'm saying. Don't judge me. I'm a nice person, but judge what I'm saying and think, is that true? Is it likely to be true? Is it true for my vertical, my website, my brand? And if it is, how is this going to impact how I do SEO in 2025? Really, predictions are helpful in giving us pause, giving us time to look back over a previous year, working out what's happened, what changed, how much of an impact did that algorithm update actually have, how much of what we were told last year was going to happen this year actually did come true. Of all of the fear-mongering, the talk on X, formerly known as Twitter, about SEO and all of the terrible, scary things that are going to happen in the year, how much of that actually came to pass? And if it did, was it as impactful as we feared it might be? For me, looking forward a year gives me a reason to look back and really evaluate what has come before. So when I look to these predictions, either making predictions or kind of considering other people's predictions, I want to look at what's happened so I can really evaluate what the impact has been. We've had a lot of things happen this year. It's been a year, but really my way of approaching SEO hasn't changed a whole amount. Yes, there have been some tweaks to the way that I look at different aspects of SEO, different activities in SEO, and perhaps I'm keeping an eye on things that I wouldn't have kept an eye on before, but really not a huge amount has changed. And that's what I want to consider as we go into these predictions I'm about to give. What does this really mean for us in the day-to-day? And I'm going to cover 5 what I think are quite core aspects of SEO. I'm going to be looking at the platforms themselves, so the search engines themselves. I'm going to be looking at SEO strategy and how we want to set strategy in 2025. I'm going to look at implementation and how these predictions might help you work out how you're going to implement SEO in 2025. But I also want us to take a look at SEO careers, because let's face it, that's what we're all here for. We are in a career, we're looking to progress in our career, and I think it's really important that we think about what that might look like in 2025. And then finally, we're going to look at the SEO industry as a whole. So what is going to become of this wonderful industry that I have spent the last 15 plus years dedicating my life to? Let's find out. So let's start off then with search platforms. So I am primarily talking about Google when I talk about search platforms. Well, at least I have been for the last 15 years, haven't we all? It used to be that unless you happen to work in some of the geographic areas that perhaps where Google wasn't as prevalent, that Google was pretty much synonymous with SEO. My biggest prediction for 2025 is that is going to become less of the case. Not going to stop completely, it's only 12 months, but I do think Google is going to start to lose its chokehold or grip on the SEO industry as a whole and the people that you work with. I think that we are not going to have a quiet 2025. I think there's going to be a lot more SERP volatility. We saw a lot of it this year, 2024. We saw a lot of new search features, for example, like the AI overviews. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. In fact, I think we're going to see a lot more happen within the SERPs themselves. Now, if you've been around in SEO for more than a couple of years, you probably will have heard people saying about how Google is a walled garden, that Google doesn't want to share traffic, that actually Google wants you to go to Google and stay on Google. And yeah, I don't see that changing really. I think that is still going to be the case. However, I don't think that means that we as SEOs will not have a job in the future. I think what it means is that we need to be really aware of what SERP features are coming in and how we might be able to utilize them. More on that later. I also think that Google's antitrust appeal will begin to have some impact. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with this, I would suggest that you go back and have a read of all of the ways that Google has had to appear in the courts recently and for what reasons. But there's court cases that have been happening in the US and the EU, whereby Google has essentially been accused of being a monopoly, that it's been having too much of a hold on the ad tech market, that it has been artificially suppressing competitors within the same search results so that Google shopping results are the ones that are appearing more in the SERPs and other competitors' results are not appearing, that Google has essentially behaved like a monopoly. And Google has fought this several times. Some of the appeals have been successful, some of the appeals have not been successful. But what this essentially means for us in the search industry is that Google and tech companies like Google are really being scrutinized at the moment for how they behave and how they behave within the market. And I wouldn't be surprised if Google does have to change its approach to how it manages its business going forward. So there has been talk, for example, of Google perhaps being asked to carve off Chrome as a separate business unit, or to really level the playing field when it comes to how it treats its competitors within its own search results. But what I think we as SEOs probably need to be aware of, even though a lot of this is really sort of focused around the paid marketing aspect of Google's products, is if Google does have to start carving off different aspects of its companies, that might mean that data sharing happens a little bit less. So it might be actually that we start to see less data coming through from Google, first-party data from Google coming through that we can use to analyze things. Now, if you are as old as I am and have been in this game for as long as I have, you probably will have lamented the loss of keywords in Google Analytics when I did. Now, that was a blow. That was a huge blow to us as an industry, but actually we rallied. We made changes to the way that we conducted SEO, the way that we analysed our impact, and we managed to find a way forwards without that first-party keyword data in Google Analytics. So although I think it will mean changes, potentially, in how Google operates and how it shares data amongst its different business units and ultimately with us, I don't think it's going to be anything that is going to be too detrimental. I do think there might be changes, but we're really going to have to wait to see what those changes are going to be, but know that Google's not going anywhere. This is not going to be the big death knell for Google. It's definitely going to keep going, and we still will have to consider it within the work that we're doing. And alongside that, I think that Google's AI overviews are going to change. We have seen a lot of changes to these over the last year. At one point, it was the case that if you appeared in Google's AI overviews, your search presence would be visible within the normal search results. And then that changed, annoyingly, right in the middle of me giving a presentation about that exact fact. And we saw that actually Google started to split that a bit more. So it could be that you appeared both in the AI overviews and your brand would appear within the normal search results. But that's continued to fluctuate, it's continued to change over time. And if you're a little bit cynical, like me, you may well have had the slight suspicion that Google released its AI overviews a little bit before they were ready. I do wonder whether it was in response to how Microsoft actually introduced AI into Bing and whether Google had to release something before it was quite finished. Because we have seen a lot of changes. We've seen a lot of complaints about AI overviews and how they're recommending people, I don't know, eat sand as a cure for the common cold, and how people don't really trust it that much at the moment. So I do imagine Google has still got a ways to go before the AI overviews really pay off for them as a brand. So I would imagine we are going to see this continue to evolve. There's going to be more along the paid search route, I would imagine, because Google needs to make its money somehow, but we are not done. I don't think AI overviews are going to be stable for quite a while yet. We might see them increase and we might see less of them actually in the search results, but it's definitely something we need to keep an eye on. So that's another prediction for next year. I can't make a prediction. It's going to be different in some way and we're going to have to wait to see how. Also, and this is a big one, I think there's going to be at least one major search engine that will emerge in 2025 that either we haven't seen yet or we've just not seen that popular yet. But I do think we are going to see something else come out of this. We have heard stories about people using TikTok as a search engine. We have heard people saying that they're losing confidence in Google. I do think there is room for another search engine to emerge. And although I wouldn't want to put money on which particular search engine that will be, or even really put money on how it's going to differentiate itself, I do think there is space in the market for something new. And as SEOs, that means we need to be aware of that as it's happening. And it's not going to be suddenly announced. It's like when people invest in crypto, they have to keep an eye on which coins are getting popular at which points and knowing when to invest and knowing when to not invest. And that is the sum total of knowledge I have about crypto or investing. But we are going to have to really consider which of these search engines that we're seeing getting more popular we actually want to put our stock in, put our faith in, whether we want to change how we operate as SEOs based on these new platforms that are emerging. And that's something that's going to be quite difficult to tell. And you're going to be faced with a situation where perhaps you're starting to research a particular platform, you're starting to invest in making changes to your strategy because of this platform, and it's not going to become as popular as we thought it would. Think of all the social media platforms that have kind of come and gone over the past couple of years. That's going to be the case with search engines, I think, because Google is no longer in a position where it's going to continue to have that stranglehold on the market. I think someone else is going to come through. So then what does that mean for strategy? Because at the end of the day, we've got to take all of this knowledge and we've got to make it make sense within the context of our business and within the context of wanting to make money for our business and for ourselves. So how exactly do we change our SEO strategy based on what the future might hold? Well, my first prediction / recommendation to you is that we're going to need to utilize the SERPs more. So as I mentioned, Google is not going to change in how much of a walled garden it is. If anything, it will get worse. So we need to make a way for SEO to focus a lot more on actually using the SERPs themselves without expecting any clicks. We're almost becoming an advertising channel in that respect. So think of all of the search real estate that exists on Google or whatever other search engine is going to emerge in the next 12 months. Think of all the areas where your brand can appear. Now, rather than optimizing for clicks that may never come or clicks that are going to lessen over time, what could you be optimizing for? You could be optimizing for brand authority. You could be optimizing for showing offers or codes or sales. You could start considering the SERPs to be much more like a billboard than a source of traffic. And that is a little bit different to how we currently carry out SEO and actually how we even track SEO. And that's something we're going to have to consider more and more. So when you're looking at your strategies for next year, don't just rely on traffic. Think about how you can make an impact on your brand, on sales, without the traffic element of it, but the search engine still being involved. I think social media is going to become even more critical to SEO success. And I have been slow on getting on this particular train because I don't want to have to spend any time on TikTok or those kind of social media sites. I spend far too much time on Reddit as it is. I haven't got the mental capacity to be on more social media. But I do think it is going to become more important, not just because social media is being used more and more as a search engine, and as SEOs, we need to be on top of that. We need to be using our SEO knowledge of how to optimize for algorithms and assisting social media teams, or perhaps even bringing some of that strategy into the SEO realm. But we also need to consider how social media is impacting brand authority. Now, we kind of discounted this a bit years ago because Google didn't really use links from social media, for example, to impact things like authority or its understanding of how authoritative a website would be in a space. But actually other search engines, other LLMs might well do. And I actually think the way that the LLMs are currently performing, things like SearchGPT, ChatGPT, Perplexity AI, they are having to use social media a lot more to understand what a brand is, why it would be authoritative within a particular space, why it would be the answer to present when someone asks a question through its platform. Google has got all of these things like links that it can rely on for that sorts of information, but newer platforms haven't got that whole history, that whole backlog of links, and they're having to develop technology that can work more on the fly, it can work really quickly, that can respond to things in real time. And so I do wonder whether social media is going to be a way that those engines can do that. And as such, we need to think about how we are utilizing social media more in relation to our brand. And ultimately, my biggest prediction for the SEO strategy side of things for 2025 is that we are going to have to be far more commercial. As SEOs, we are going to have to link everything back to revenue, because SEO is being scrutinized as a channel at the moment. It has in the past, but I have seen it happening more and more, that no longer is SEO being considered free traffic. It's actually being understood in terms of how much it's costing businesses to run. People are costing the businesses through salaries, for example, through the expensive tools that we like, or the nice, really reasonable tools that we also like. But essentially, SEO is costing money to businesses. And as a result of that, we need to show how it is returning that investment. And we've not always been very good at doing that as SEOs. We've kind of talked about traffic, but we've just heard that actually we might be getting less traffic in 2025. Or we've talked about sessions and leads and things that are happening from a very analytical data point of view, but we've not really done very well at linking it back to money. How much money are we generating as SEOs, and how can we predict how much money we're going to generate? Every SEO hates having to do forecasting because it is just so difficult to do it well, but actually we're going to have to. We are going to have to get good and comfortable with proper forecasting around revenue, because SEOs are going to be asked to do that more and more. And if we want to keep our jobs, if we want to progress in our jobs, we need to show that we can do that. Part of your strategy needs to be linking it back to the data that your C-suite cares about, and that usually is money. I also think last click attribution is not going to be enough anymore. 2025, we are not going to get away with just saying X amount of people came to the website through organic and then converted. That's not going to be enough, because we've already found out that actually we can anticipate fewer clicks through from Google, or it might be that we're getting more traffic from other sources like social media or these new LLMs and the new platforms that might be emerging, but they won't necessarily be attributed to organic traffic, despite the fact that it might be our work that is impacting their success. So just focusing purely on organic traffic equals X amount of conversion isn't going to be enough. We need to look about how the work that we are doing, whether it's on Google or these other platforms, is impacting throughout a customer's journey. So how is it that organic is helping to convince someone who has perhaps first come to know about a brand through social media that this is the website that they should be visiting? Or how is it that we can help people discover the brand for the first time through organic search, but they might then come back and convert via, say, an email campaign? We need to be tracking how organic has impacted at every single point, now more than ever, I would say, because our usual fallback of being able to say, well, we got this amount of traffic and it led to this amount of conversions, I think that's going to become less and less as Google continues to build up its wall and other search engines start to take the place of Google. So we really need to look at how we can prove our worth throughout the journey of a visitor. This might be music to some people's ears and perhaps a little concerning for others, but I am predicting that links are going to become less sought after. In 2025, we are going to be going after links less, and in place, we're going to be looking for mentions. So we're going to be looking for our brand to be talked about more on social media, more on forums like Reddit, to be spoken about and discussed in the context of our industry, so that not only does Google understand more about how we're relevant to particular searches, but these other platforms that are perhaps using these mentions more will become much more aware of how our particular brand is synonymous with a particular product or service, or the sentiment that sits behind our particular brand. Because if an LLM is looking to serve maybe one or two brands as an answer to someone's query, unlike Google that has the 10 blue links plus everything else that appears in the SERPs, these LLMs are really refining down the search results so that it's just a couple of suggestions when it is linking through to a brand. They need to be serving ones that are positively thought about, because there's less room for you as a consumer to make a choice. When you look on Google SERPs, you can make a choice based on things like the meta title and description that's showing, that sort of thing. You don't get that opportunity with LLMs, so they are going to have to do a little bit of that gatekeeping for you, so that when they do suggest a brand, they know it's a brand that you are going to be satisfied with. So for me, I think the mentions are going to become as important, if not more important, than links in the near future. All right, let's look at how this actually impacts your day-to-day life, how you will actually have to change the way you implement things going forwards. Well, you're probably going to spend all of your days only talking about Google going forwards. I have had to disconnect my Google Home in my office because I kept setting it off because I only ever speak about Google when I'm working. But that's not going to be the case any longer. I think we will be more aware of these other platforms and how we personally are able to impact them. We are going to have to talk about the social media sites that perhaps we've left purely to the social media team in the past. We are going to have to talk about these new LLMs that are becoming more prevalent. When we are looking at how we can help our websites be discovered more, we are not only going to focus on Googlebot. We cannot just focus on Googlebot anymore, because these other platforms are not necessarily using Googlebot to discover your content. So you might have to have conversations with your developers who have already blocked these AI bots from visiting the site so that they can't steal any of your content. And you might have to tell them, actually, we need to look into this because this particular platform uses this particular bot. And if we don't allow it onto our website, we are never going to appear in the search results. We are going to have to think beyond Google. For some people, that'll be easy because they're used to doing that, because they have worked in big enough international corporates where Actually, they're using the likes of Yandex and Baidu on the day-to-day, but for a lot of us, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. But 2025 is the time. It is going to be the year when you're finally going to have to let go of Google as your primary synonym for SEO, and you're going to have to start looking at some of those other search engines. User signals have become even more important. They currently are important, we know that, for Google, but I think user signals are going to influence these other LLMs and search platforms even more. So as we are optimizing our website, it is going to be important to look at how do users behave on the site? What will they start talking about on social media about our brand? Because that links back to the mentions, which links back to how the LLMs understand our brand in relation to our products and services. So what the user genuinely thinks about the website will become the concern of SEOs. It has to be. We cannot just leave it up to the UX team or the CRO team. We need to be really mindful about how users are interacting with the website, the brand, and what they're talking about in relation to those two things. I think biggest barrier to success within SEO implementation is still going to be technical SEO. If you do not consider yourself a technical SEO, start considering yourself a technical SEO right now. Because if a bot cannot crawl your website, if it cannot discover your content, if it cannot understand the schema markup that you've put on your site, you are really, really, really going to struggle to start featuring some of these newer platforms. Google has spent a lot of time and money developing an understanding of different websites, how they are structured, how they work, what something poorly written is actually trying to say. But these other platforms may not have done that. And as a result, we need to be incredibly, incredibly clear and easy to navigate our website from a bot's perspective. And they need to understand exactly what it is they are reading and understanding when they come to the website. So get good at technical SEO. You probably already are, you just don't consider yourself a technical SEO, but start really looking into how bots crawl sites, what they understand of sites. Research how some of these other platforms are operating in that space. Make sure that you are very aware of the changes that are happening, because essentially, if your website has got great content but technically is a mess, now more than ever, that is going to be a problem. And alongside that, I think we are going to have to focus more on automation. That's another big prediction, that we are going to have to get good at looking at scale. It's not going to be the case any longer that you can spend time changing the old meta title here or there, testing how it's gone, maybe going back and making changes to some more. We are going to have to look at how you can programmatically make changes to your website, programmatically approach SEO, because it's not just going to be for the eyes of Google anymore. We're going to have to think about how we can meet the needs of all of these different search platforms. And it's very difficult to do that on an ad hoc basis. We need to think about how we can utilize automation more to make our jobs easier, but also make our websites work better. Now, don't worry, because we have AI to help us. So even if you're not super comfortable with the likes of Python, don't worry, because there will be resources out there that can help you, or in the case of AI, perhaps even do it for you. But don't turn away from trying to programmatically approach SEO, because it's going to be even more important to how you carry out SEO in the near future. Right, the good stuff. What's going to happen with our careers? Every year we have that, should I retrain as a product manager? Should I maybe look at doing a development bootcamp? Is SEO going to be a career for much longer? I do think it will be. I am staking my career, the career of my husband, and the career of my cats on the fact that SEO will still be around in the near future. But I do think the career itself is going to change. And if you are happening to look for a new job at the moment, or you are over 2025, I think you're going to start noticing that the job ads themselves are changing. That no longer are we talking specifically about Google optimization, but we're going to start talking about generative engine optimization, generative experience optimization, LLM optimization, whatever it is that we've decided to call this. Optimizing for the AI search platforms is going to be a requirement going forwards. So start getting comfortable with that. Where you can, start experimenting with that, making sure you understand how these LLMs that are currently popular are working, so that when new ones come about, you'll be ready to start approaching those within your strategy as well, or at least very comfortable talking about them in interviews, because I do expect them to come up more and more over 2025 as part of the interview process. Alongside that, soft skills are going to be even more important. Where I've mentioned past that we need to get better at being more commercial in our strategies, we're also going to have to get better at playing the game. SEOs have kind of been left to their own devices a lot of the time, because in the past we just weren't understood. We were the misunderstood branch of the marketing team, or the misunderstood branch of the product team. No one quite understood what we did, and we got to fly under the radar a little bit because clicks were up, traffic was up, everything was good. But if that's not going to be the case going forwards, then we need to make sure that we are getting much better at communicating the value of what we're doing, communicating our strategies and our plans, being able to work with other teams and helping them reach their goals and KPIs, because we need to be ready to change and grow in our own careers, but also in the way that we approach SEO over the next 12 months. Soft skills are going to be important. You need to get comfortable with things like talking to the C-suite, arguing your point, making yourself clear, because SEO, as it comes under more scrutiny and your strategy is judged even harsher than it perhaps is at the moment, you are going to have to get comfortable with defending it and also working with other people to make sure that actually your strategy is working for lots of teams, all of the stakeholders that are involved, not just the SEO team. Tech skills are going to be more important. So where I said that technical SEO is going to be the blocker to doing good SEO, that means that you need to get good at those tech skills. Now, don't be worried. There's lots of good platforms out there that can help you with this kind of thing. But there's also ways that you can learn and practice and not to be scared of technical SEO. I come across so many people who are just scared of technical SEO because they think it's development. And although there is a really wafty line between the two, there is a lot of overlap. There's no reason that people who don't have development skills can't learn technical SEO. And I would encourage you to, because it's fun and it's exciting and it is the future of SEO. So start looking now at doing some introductory courses if you need to, or really just sharpening up those technical SEO skills. But they are going to be the bedrock of careers going forwards in SEO. That's my prediction for 2025. Success will also mean expanding the platform that you are comfortable working across. So where I'm saying that Google's not going to be the one and only search platform going forwards, that means you need to be comfortable working and operating in an ever-changing space, working in new platforms as they come up, working in new webmaster tools setups as they come about. As new platforms launch or you're using them more, you need to get comfortable with the data that they're providing. If you want your career in SEO to be successful, it just means broadening your horizons a little bit, understanding more of what some other teams do, leaning a bit more into the social media side of things, leaning a little bit more into the development side of things, but ultimately just broadening your horizons, moving slightly away from Google as being the only source of SEO traffic, and understanding what other spaces you can have an impact in, and talking about that in your job interviews. I do think SEO jobs are going to have fancier names. When we finally decide on whether we're calling it GEO or LLM, PQRS, AIO, whatever it is that we end up calling this new type of SEO, it's going to feature in our job titles. I can guarantee it. So don't expect to be called a SEO manager for much longer. You're going to be a search platform wrangler or a AI and SEO strategist for the search team. I do think we are going to see an evolution of what SEO jobs look like going forwards. And that's good. That's exciting. That means that you are going to have more opportunity to do things that you've not had the opportunity to do before. And SEO won't continue to be just sort of relegated off to the side as this thing that no one properly understands. But as our jobs broaden and we start to deal with more areas that other stakeholders have an impact in, and our job titles get fancier, we are going to be understood more. We're going to be welcomed into the fold more, and we're going to be seen as the practitioners that really do have an impact on a company's success. But if you want to progress, if you want to go up in your career next year, I do think that you are going to have to think slightly wider than SEO. Now, I'm not saying that SEO is not a career going forwards, but it is a career that has to touch on a lot of different other aspects. Have a bit of an understanding about how developers work in their day-to-day, how sprints work, and how QA happens in development, because that will help you as an SEO who has to work with those teams. Understand more about social media and how reactive it is, because that will help you as an SEO when you are liaising with the social media team to understand why they perhaps don't want to plan 6 months in advance like you do. Career progression means that you are going to have to show that you understand all of these other touch points that SEO has an impact on, all of these other stakeholders and what they care about in their day-to-day. You are going to have to show that that's important to you as well. So finally, the SEO industry. What's going to be left for us in 2025? Will SEO finally die? Well, in my not so humble opinion, we will see the sky turn red, pigs learning to fly, and Grey's Anatomy finally off the air before SEO will actually die. It's not going anywhere, but it is going to evolve. What we call SEO today might not be called SEO tomorrow. And what we do in our day-to-day might not be the same today as it will be in a year's time. But we will still have careers. We will still have an industry that we're working in. There will still be search engines to optimize. There will still be fear-mongering, of course, because what else do we talk about in our Reddit threads and our X, formerly known as Twitter posts? We are still going to be scaring each other with talks of how AI is going to take over our jobs and how we won't have any search engines left to optimize. But I don't believe that's the case. I have lived through that many, many times in the past, and it's not happened yet. I still have a career. You still have a career. I still think there's a career to be had. But there will always be change. That is probably the prediction that you can count on the most. There will always be change in this industry, but that change doesn't have to be life-changing. It might just be strategy tweaking, implementation changing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to completely retrain into another career, but there will be change in 2025. And that's exciting. That's really exciting. If you have been in SEO for any length of time, you've probably been resting on your laurels a little bit here or there. You've probably not had to stretch yourself quite as much as maybe some of the other marketing channels have had to recently. But you're going to in the near future. You're going to have to really address the change, and that's exciting. There's a whole host of new things to learn. There's a whole host of new platforms to be working on. Your job can get really exciting again if you let it. So those are my predictions for 2025. Thankfully, you'll have forgotten them all by January 1st. So don't at me in December 2025 telling me they were all wrong, because hopefully the majority of them will be correct, or at least correct to a degree. But thank you all for listening. I am now available to answer any questions that you might have had, anything that might be flying around in the chat.
Thanks a lot for this very interesting talk. We have a few questions. If you haven't already asked your question, please do so in the question tab at the bottom of your screen. And to start, we have a question from Jordan. Would SEO stop saying it depends in 2025?
Hey, definitely. Well, definitely. That's the one thing we can be certain on. We will continue to say it depends. And actually, it depends is spreading. I had an engineer say it to me the other day. Who'd have thought we've managed to influence the engineers to start saying, it depends. Actually, I think it depends is probably going to become more prevalent next year, because if we are looking at things like new platforms emerging or what have you, then honestly, the future is not clear at the moment. So we are probably going to have to say it depends a lot, which is fine, as long as you back it up with, these are my reasons why I don't know yet, and here is what I'm going to investigate.
Thank you. We also have Chien asking, will TikTok become next search platform?
I think it already is a search platform. I don't think it's going to be the search platform. So I don't think that it is going to completely replace Google, for example, because the elderly, like me, don't necessarily want to use TikTok for their discovery, because the content that's in TikTok isn't necessarily the stuff that they are looking for when they are conducting a search. But I do think it is going to become a search platform. It already is. People are already using it for discovering new brands, discovering new products and services. And it's something we need to take notice of. But I don't think it's going to fully replace traditional search as we know.
And then we have Alice asking, what platforms would you recommend to get better at technical SEO?
Oncrawl. But also, I would suggest that you have a look at things like Aleda Solis's learningseo.io. Her website has got a huge track of information that you can use to learn more about technical SEO. And really, for me, learning technical SEO is about understanding the fundamentals. What does a bot do? How does it understand a website? How does it navigate through a website? What happens if it gets this response or this response? So actually Google has got a lot of good guidance on that. If you start looking at Google's developer guidelines, you'll get a lot of the fundamentals from that. And obviously that's just Google. And I mentioned to you just now that you might need to look at some other bots, but I would start there. I would start understanding how bots themselves work. And then I'd have conversations with other people. So other people who perhaps have been developers, for example, they know loads about how technical SEO works. They just don't know that it's technical SEO necessarily. So there's a lot of people that you can learn from. So I would, do some formal learning if you can, as in follow a guide or follow a training path, but also just speak to people. I think that really does help with getting better at technical SEO. And then start trying to problem solve. Next time there's something that comes up in your team that is a technical SEO thing, try to stay along with the conversation, try to keep up with what's being said and make some recommendations and hear why you're wrong. And that kind of thing really helps to sharpen your skills.
Thank you, Helen. We still have some time for some more questions. Don't be shy.
Just running through the chat right now.
Dustin is asking how to optimize in Google Gemini.
Good question. That's a really good question. I can't give you an answer to them. Oh, sorry, I can. It depends. I really think that for AI in particular, it's all about brand. It's about making sure that your brand is synonymous with whatever it is that you are looking to be served in a search result for. So with Google Gemini, look at how Google perceives your brand. So what does it think when you search your brand and the knowledge panel comes up? What is it saying about your brand? Is it accurate? Is it not? Because if it's not, that would suggest that Google Gemini is not going to have a good understanding of who you are and what you do. So brand really is your first focus. What are you an authority in, and how can you better guide the LLMs to understand what you're an authority in?
And Jordan is asking, do you think voice search like Alexa will become more prominent thanks to potential AI enhancements?
Oh, thank you for asking that. So back in the olden days, in pre-COVID times, in fact, there was a stat that was floating around the world saying that voice search would become the 50% of all searches would happen via voice search by 2020. And I was planning to make my entire predictions based on that one stat alone, because it still amuses me that everybody was saying it back then, everyone, and it just didn't happen, because who does really use voice search that much other than to ask what the time is and what the weather's going to be like? I do think that as we become more connected with the different devices that we use, that we probably will still use Alexa and Google Home in that similar way, where we're just asking for quick updates of information. But I think there'll be more connectedness in those devices. But I can't see it really taking off quite in the way that was predicted those 4 years ago. People still are searching at their desk and they want to see information rather than just hear it a lot of the time. Or they want to navigate to a website, which is just a clunky experience when you're using these kind of home assistants. So I think it's one to watch, definitely. But I can't see it becoming that prominent anytime soon. This is awkward. I could just not speak until someone gives another question. I'm willing to wait it out.
We have another one. Which SEO tools do you suggest we use in 2025?
That is such a loaded question, isn't it? I think you should use the tools that are best suited to your business. Now, I will not name names in this moment in time because I think it's actually really important that you do a proper evaluation into what your business needs. Some tools are not right for every business because it might be actually that they are so full of really good, valuable information that it's almost too much functionality for some particular businesses. Or it might be that actually one tool isn't enough for a particular business and you might need to supplement it with additional tools. But I think there is no one answer for that because it will very much depend on your business and what your business needs, and also budgets and what other teams are going to use. And sometimes it's a lot easier to get a budget approved if you can show use for a tool with other teams, for example. So I cannot possibly answer that for you because you need to make that analysis yourself. Did I get away with that answer?
And Eleanor is asking for dashboards. What would be for you the best KPI to show to the client?
Ooh, money. Whether your client is an actual client or your client is a manager or a senior manager, the number one KPI that you should always be showing is revenue. Always revenue. Because even if your client, for example, the person that you liaise with day to day and the person who reads your reports is a marketing manager or even SEO themselves, they are always going to have to be reporting up to someone who is going to say, why are we paying this agency money? Or why have we hired this person? What are they doing for my bottom line? So you always need to start with that front and center. We did this, it led to this additional revenue, or we did this, there's been a revenue drop. However, we are doing this, which we predict will lead to revenue. Because at the end of the day, that is what keeps a business going. Whether that business is a charity or it's corporate, money is going to be what influences people the most. And then you can start to go into why has this had an impact on revenue? What are some of the leading indicators that change will happen in the future with revenue? But really, always link it back to money.
And I think that can conclude our session for today.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for staying around to have a listen. Please do reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any more questions. I'm happy to answer these.
Thank you, Helen, for this great keynote. What a beautiful way to end up this We Love SEO online event. It has given us a lot to think of, to prepare and to refine our SEO strategy in 2025. Thank you all for attending. And again, a replay will be available very soon. So you will probably receive it next week. Thank you very much.